Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Our viewers, my name is Norman Tumuhimbise. We are streaming live on our social media pages. That's the Alternative Uganda Facebook page, Digitalk TV Facebook page also, and YouTube, the Alternative Uganda. Being a Monday at this time, 7 or there about, for lack of another word, because sometimes we abuse the time and maybe hit by a minute or so. We are always here in the Digitalk house, of course, with our show, The Hotline. As you hear, it's always a hotline. Today, I don't want to say that the NRM representative has avoided it, but of course, Honorable Awich is away. And next time we shall have him definitely because he's our permanent panelist. The usual suspect, for lack of another word, I should also say, is Mr. Ochieno. But of course, the extreme end on my left is Honorable Michael Mabikke, and he's a former legislator for Much in the West. I hear, sorry, Much in the East. I hear, I shouldn't have it as a rumor, but I think it is now proven scientifically, politically, and I don't know whether biologically that he's coming back for the same seat. I do not know whether he has learned from the history or like the Baboni monarch, learning nothing and forgetting nothing, but I think he has now learned why he lost in the previous election. But of course, he will share with us why he did lose. And on my closest left now is the president of the, how do you call them? The Ugandans on X. To say I have the government in this room. I have a president, I have another president for UPC, I have a secretary general for DF. So to say I am in things, maybe, I don't know whether the president for Ugandans on X has some positions, cabinet positions. Say hello to our viewers, sir.
Hello everyone, thank you for having me here, and glad to be with these distinguished gentlemen on the same panel. It's such an honor, and I appreciate Digitalk for involving the young people on these national conversations. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kwikiriza Gedion. Senior citizen, Mr. Joseph Ochieno. You know, I always want to address you in two ways. You know, having been in power, lost power, now you are looking for it. Say hello to our viewers. Having lost power under UPC, of course, now you are again looking for the same power.
You're absolutely right. We've been in power. and we've been in government.
How does it feel like having been in power and then you're out of the power and then looking for the power?
We've been in power and in government, and we used power as an instrument of government to deliver for this country. Twice we were in government, both elected democratically. We are the only political party that has never broken the doors, the gates of State House. Twice elected. But losing power, we have never been defeated in government at an election. So 1971, we were overthrown by an external backed Idi Amin. The young guy on X ought to take that. Amin did not overthrow the government. Amin was helped by external forces to support. I mean, to basically overthrow your government, that government that was delivering for the people of Uganda against dubious foreign interests. The same with the 1985 coup, which included Mr. Museveni as an interest. No wonder he's the #1 agent of foreign interest in this country. So yes, your country, as UPC tries to build it, other quizzling forces like the Musevenis sink it using external forces.
Honorable Michael Mabikke is an advocate now, Secretary General for Democratic Front. It's a party now that has a tree, a whole tree. Say hello to our viewers and then we shall...
And before Mike actually does that, it's good to be with Mike actually. It's a long time since I think we're in the same panel because we are in the early afternoon of our season in politics. So it's fantastic to see you, Mike.
Both of you suffering to get into power. Okay, so hello to our viewers.
Thank you. Our viewers, nice being here for the first time.
Yeah.
Nice place. I want to appreciate you, Norman.
Thank you.
For this development. I'm happy to be here with Mr. Ochieno. He's my long-time colleague. He's a very illustrious son of Uganda, and I met him in London first.
Thank you.
We have worked together on many projects. Projects will bring about change. I'm happy to meet the president of Ugandan X. That one I don't know. I don't know of that party really. But, maybe it is equally digital. It is a digital party. Virtual party, virtual president.
Ugandans X.
But I want to also greet our people of DF. You know that we have just come from a very, very big conference and a launch. A launch that took everybody by storm, Uganda by storm. I don't think that people expected it, but as usual, we work on the ground. The people here say, Kwemulisa, Kwemulisa. We don't do that. We just get into work and deliver results.
We shall get into
so
that.
I'm very pleased to be here and with the panel.
Okay, thank you. Before we head into our topical discussion on whether the formation of political parties represents democracy or rather a failure in the existing parties, I want to ask Mr. Gedion Kwikiriza to, of course, to share with us maybe in a minute or so how has been your week, of course, giving you a summary that while the president was addressing people, of course, yourself and others, he said, of course, he had to adhere to the request by people who asked him to to contest for president and also chairperson in NRM. What is your take, maybe in a minute also? And you could summarize our week, your week actually, for the rest of our viewers.
The niche in my week will be about today's experience. While in the morning, around 11 a.m., I was leaving Kasangati, and that's where he's been today. And I noticed that the businesses around the playground, because he's been at Wampeo Playground, the businesses, the shops, the kiosks, everything was closed off. And I first got reports last night when I was going home, because I've stayed in that place for quite some time. So I know some people there, my friends and colleagues, telling me, amaduka gafe bagasibye. So I first thought it was a joke. Then when I was sloping home in our compound, I found almost a barracks. They had put this truck, and then they have tents all over the compound. First of all, they didn't ask for the place. They just came and settled there. And everyone was in fear, everyone was complaining. So in the morning I found these shops, kiosks and everything closed. And I made a post about it, and it's been going viral. I took a photo of the kiosks and the shops and even some videos. The question I've been asking on X is, you claim to have managed security in this country, claim to be a regime that's so good at security and everything. So if you're so good at security, do you have to close people's businesses in a place where the president is going to visit? Does that show mighty of security, or it shows weakness? That you can't have the president in place A or B when actually people are running their businesses. In business sense, it would even make a lot of sense if you let these people open and work, because they are having numbers. People need to be there. I understand people have been ferried from different places, and I'll be sharing videos on my because I'm still getting that information. There were trucks.
But you have no proof to that. They could be your neighbors, and you don't even know that they were happy to see the president.
If they were neighbors, there would be no need for them to be in a truck.
The neighborhood, maybe around Kawempe.
No, I'm saying about trucks. We are trucks that were dropping people, and I'm getting videos to that. That's not the issue. The issue is that these are very many people. The locals, the people who operate around that area, it would make a lot of business sense for them. First of all, these are people who are not selling arms, who are not selling bombs or anything. There are shops. In one of the videos, I was telling them each shop by shop what happens in that shop. One is a salon, another one is a mini supermarket. Imagine how much money they would have made, you know. So I really don't want to get into what President Museveni talks about when he says that people, that it's people who asked him to stand again. I think it would be a wastage of my time.
There is a need. Maybe you don't want to subscribe to the fact that there is a need, according to him.
As a matter of interest, what is he doing? What is he supposed to be doing in that place? He came to laugh at your poverty.
No, PDM.
Yeah,
actually, today, he's in Wakiso the whole of this week, I think. He's doing his PDM tours, where he spends, I don't know how much, and then comes to supervise projects of 2 goats, 1 pig, you know. So in a nutshell, on my X, I referred to it as the poverty development model. Yes. So
okay.
I think today,
that's a summary of
today covered my whole week.
Okay, there's nothing good, because I don't want you to sound like you are this sadist. There should be some bit of something good maybe that transpired in the country that you could mention.
You see, even when there are good things,
they are covered by
the bad things. You feel so bad that a whole head of the state has to spend over 3 billion a day, because that's the budget, between 2 and 3 billion a day, to go and supervise projects worth 1 million. Even that 1 million does not get to the people.
Okay, Mr. Ochieno, I have it from there. How has been your week ever since we last met the previous Monday?
It has been mixed, and I was about to give you some fantastic family stories and family news items, but only to say that this morning, as a matter of interest, I went to see the mother of the nation, paid a courtesy call to Mama Miria at Kololo residence. Fantastic lady, I must repeat. Mbeja, Mama Miria is the mother of this nation. Fantastic woman, and great shape, and huge humility, and always a pleasure to be around her. So I was with her briefly this morning. But as I was going to her place, I passed Prince Charles, Avenue in Kololo. And I said, these are the roads in Kololo? It's absolutely terrible road. Kololo, the hill of privilege of traditional Kampala. And away from that, I had come from that road in Nigeria. I have been traumatized in that place.
Construction. You should also mention that.
Oh no, I can tell you, I have been traumatized in that place for the last 2.5 years. And it's actually criminal. And once upon a time, Ibrahim Samuju and I, we were chatting and joking and were saying, but look, to think of it, what crime have the people of this area committed? And actually, if you consider Nigeria 1, Nigeria 2, Chira, Bulin to the other end, I said, is there anybody who carries an NRA card? So this is Uganda. There is something wrong. Something, maybe Benahin. Is it Benahin? This one who prays for people and whatever. Yeah, Benahin. Yeah. Maybe he needed to pray for certain people. I hope he prayed.
Miracle.
To release people's heads. If anybody lives in Bulindo, and anybody lives in Chira, and anybody lives in Nigeria, and passes that road that I've passed, and they vote NRA, they need...
The CDF rebuked him.
They need to wait for a future UPC government, to do a special unit in Mulago so that we try and help heal them. It is terrible. Finally, link that with the observation my young friend he's talking about, because I've always been on that what crime has Museveni committed? What crime has his family committed? What crime do his ministers commit? Because as I was leaving Kololo on my way to Kololo Airstrip is now an occupied territory. 1 month ago, I told the police there that they could just as well make Museveni take Kololo Airstrip with him, just take it to Rachtura. Just take it. But as I was leaving there, Lower Kololo, Upper Kololo actually, is a place where, you can see how old I am, in 1984 as a high school student, an Obote convoy in the evening, about 7 o'clock, found me where, I think, is it towards Acacia Avenue. 2 vehicles. Granted, they're coming from President's office, I believe, in the evening, going back to his home. That same place of Acacia Avenue. And there are 2 Mercedes-Benz cars. No police outriders, but outriders are neither here nor there. Going home, and the first one, him and security guys, and then I saw my president like this, at a slow pace. Museveni and this bunch were in Luwero, and they were at the same time throwing bombs here in Kampala. So your point, young man, extremely important. Number 3, I was at the seminar with Norbert Mao last week, and we had fantastic conversation around the electoral reforms and others. But in that morning, I also met the last Mr. Speaker, Francis Butagira. I was delighted to bump on him at the hotel. This is a great gentleman. These are national heroes. These are national assets. With humility, with decency, powerful people. But you know what? When he was Mr. Speaker, 1 car, 1 driver, all ministers. Yes.
But you see,
like all ministers.
You see, Mr. Ochieno,
yes.
maybe for purposes of our viewers to also learn, we may not be in a position to use your government back in the day as their district. First of all, perhaps there weren't as many sophisticated
criminals. They're in the bush, yeah?
Perhaps there weren't as many unemployed young people and so
who are angry, you're abusing us, you're abusing our young unemployed.
Maybe the population wasn't as much as, So you wouldn't want to see Mr. Museveni walk on, in 2 vehicles. Because
making Uganda sound like an isolated country.
In any case, your budget wasn't as much. So let the gentleman enjoy his... I've been to some countries, but of course, but of course, even Kagame doesn't move in 4 vehicles. He has around 8 or even or so.
But do you see every minister, every CDF, every?
Maybe he wants to eat alone. This one doesn't eat alone.
Actually, in Uganda, you don't need to be a minister. You just buy an expensive car, have sirens.
Let Mr. Ochieno, let Mr. Kagame wants to eat alone. Mr. wants to eat with the rest. Conclusively, and then I question.
So you get the point. So no, it's extremely important. So junior ministers have got convoys. Some crooked soldiers who pretend and claim they're heroes, you know, want convoys, you know. And I never saw this. I'm telling, I never in Kampala, but Museveni and his we're throwing bombs here at Kampala. I need to continuously repeat this because the context of today's conversation, really we need to bring this up so that the younger guys like this are able to pick it up, so that they build confidence that their agitation for change is not unreasonable. That this country has had better nearly 50 years ago. That whatever is happening today is unacceptable. But that also should be able to give these guys hope that actually this country is possible. And it's possible that the two of us and others can build a foundation for the Republic of Uganda which can be decent, and one in which our taxes go to invest in healthcare and education, not personal security of a family like the one we found in Kasangati this morning.
I don't want to say that you have some bit of you're kind of feeling envious for the big man to have his 40 vehicles.
In Jesus' name, there is absolutely nothing about Museveni that I envy, not a single thing. Absolutely not.
So let me cross to Honorable Mabikke, who may not feel that envious to the big man. First of all, to brief the world, what is happening in DF, and of course with that big tree, what it symbolizes on whether it is true that that tree shall give us some bit of shelter. Proceed. Honorable Mabikke.
It shall not only give you shelter, but it will also bear you fruit.
Fruit, amen.
You know, but you know, back in the day when we were kids, you know, there are those big trees that also have some bit of bees, and everywhere you seek shelter, before you know it, some bees are also chasing you. So I hope
it's not such tree.
I hope your tree doesn't have bees and those snakes, green snakes.
It's a tree where everyone comes to take shade. The elders convene. To discuss important matters, you know.
Tree of wisdom,
a tree of wisdom, a tree where people come take shelter during rain, during sunshine. It symbolizes environment. It symbolizes dialogue. It symbolizes serious conversation, mature conversation, and not just simple talk. It also symbolizes fruits. Uganda needs, we now need as a country to move and change Uganda, deliver results, and the results are symbolized by that tree, the fruits of the tree. So the results we are going to, we shall soon achieve are seen by the fruits in that tree. Now, of course, the DF is one of the newest political formation.
The youngest now.
But fastest growing.
Very, very young, as in name and formation, but very old.
Yes, but fastest growing political organization in Uganda. Now, as you know, many people have been asking, why DF? First, Article 29 of the Constitution provides that Ugandans are free to form and join associations, all political organizations. So we are actually exercising our rights, constitutional rights as Ugandans. That Article 29 also provides that you can associate and also disassociate.
But the framers of that of that article, in any case, and the mother law at large, did not mean to bring about mushrooming political parties. When you get annoyed amidst yourselves, then you create your own.
That's also not correct. That's also not correct. Our journeys remain constant. You know that. And the political parties are largely vehicles. And somebody said it. I think was it Mr. Ochieno? Political parties are vehicles. They're ideological vehicles. And when your vehicle fails, you go to get a new one.
Rather than fixing it. Unless you mean to say that
there are those which are irreparable.
DMC.
There are vehicles which are irreparable. Especially the new ones, not the ones started in 1960. The ones started in 1950s, the UPCs, the DPs, have got long-standing values and, they may, to some extent, be easy to fix, but not these new ones, post-1996 political parties.
But also, it always becomes a new vehicle that may not be...
And 205. Anyway, to get you away from all that, we are building a new front. We are building a frontier of Ugandans who feel that we should look at things differently. Well, we have for a long time practiced the same tactics, done the same things with minimal results. Minimal results. That's why I no longer complain about the 40 years of Museveni. We have said enough. I was a founder member of UID.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most vibrant political youth organization Uganda has ever had. We talked about these issues. We fought and delivered multipartism. But by the way, we delivered this multipartism. And in the multipartism that we delivered, we thought Ugandans would be free. The Ugandans would be free to associate. Ugandans would be free to operate. They would have political freedom. Actually, post-205, when we opened multipartism, the political space instead has been shrinking. Uganda's political freedoms have been actually, the political space has been declining. Why? Because it was deliberate. Mr. Museveni symbolically opened the space for political parties, but moved around, strengthened the military, strengthened the security, and made it impossible for these political organizations to operate so freely. But of course, as you say, as many people say here, whatever is happening in Uganda lends credence to one fact, that we can never take the path of a revolution ever again in Uganda. Because even if you took the path of a revolution, you again move round into the same cycle.
So how different is it?
We are now watching for a non-violent struggle, a struggle that would not completely subvert. Because, you know, when you have a revolution in a country, and in all those countries which have had revolutions, you find that the revolutionary government starts doing worse things than the regime it fought to replace. In actual sense, it moves a full cycle back to where the other regime ended. And this is what we are seeing in Uganda today. So, whatever is happening in Uganda, and as has been amplified by my colleagues here, lends credence to the fact that Ugandans must now be sensitized to struggle, to engage in non-violent struggle, to bring about those changes that should ultimately be able to build a better Uganda. Now, whenever you have civil democratic reforms, things change for the better. And I want to follow the key of the Kenyans. I just marvel at the way the Kenyans have done it. From Moi, who was running something, an apparatus similar to the NRA, to where they are now, is something that we should take a cue. It is a path that Ugandans should copy. First, getting politically mature actors. Sadly, Ugandan opposition actors are so politically immature. They engage in trivialities. They engage in petty issues, which divert them away from the.
But you're one of
the
those.
Bigger yes, I am.
Players.
This is a reprimand to all of us. I am one of them. I'm one of them. And
who engage in a petty discussion.
I am one of them, and at the end of the day, I am saying, at the end of the day, I'm saying that it is now important. If you're talking about mindset change, that mindset change must first occur from within the political class. If the Ugandan political class want to liberate the people of Uganda, they should first liberate themselves ideologically. They should change the way they see things. They should change the way the methods of work. They should change a lot of things that they do engage in. So it is critical, and very much so, that we build now a critical mass that sees things differently, that actually has democracy, that practices democracy. It is always Mugisha Muntu who tells us, you can never you would never give what you don't have. Actually, most opposition actors do not have what they preach.
But Honorable, with how much you have said, unless you mean to say that of course you need more time, because truth be told, I doubt whether you can even achieve 10 or so % of what you have mentioned between now and next year, February, when the country is
brother.
Is that
again, that's a change in perspective.
That also helps your viewers to know that you see Honorable Mabikke with his DF and the bigger tree need time, because civic education for mindset change may not, if people have not changed for the past 40 years to know to differentiate between what is wrong and what is right, and you have less than 8 months, how truthful are you with your DF?
But if you want to change Uganda, you can never move along Mr. Museveni's timelines.
But he seems to say to the
I can tell you this, if Museveni had moved around UPC timelines, he would never have captured power. Had Museveni actually, and you see that Semogere who decided to move play along the government program, the one, the timeline, at the end of the day, was overrun. Both government and the opposition were overrun by this man, who said, no, I have my own agenda, regardless of when I will achieve it, I am going to start. And this is it. This is the DF. So regardless of your timelines, yes, we are mindful of that. And whoever wants to participate in an election, they will participate. But election per se, as we always say, cannot deliver the change that the people of Uganda want. Elections are mere rituals. They happen every 5 years.
Do you?
And this is where, by the way, this is where we deviate from our colleagues in NUP, who we thought that we had set a different agenda, a different path altogether, and that we would do things much differently. But we realized at the end of the day, we are operating with people who were still using 1980 tactics, 1996 tactics, which have actually failed. And so you can't tell me about an election. Actually, if it is a ritual, yes, we may even participate as a ritual, but we don't expect much.
That's why would you?
Why would you waste your time in a ritual?
You can't even participated in the 1980 elections. She did.
But you say, Honorable.
So you should have that. You should have that history, my dear.
Before I come to.
And if I were to tell you about elections, you can even have a program of change before an election, or during an election, or after an election. It has happened. Is
your opposition that organized to cause any change?
This is the new thing. This is the value we are adding now.
The same people.
New organization.
The same people.
No.
Underline that, Honorable Mabikke. The same people are the ones with the same template, and I highly doubt.
Which some people?
You.
Oh no.
You.
Have I ever been a presidential candidate myself? No. Let me ask Norman. Have I ever been a presidential candidate?
Maybe.
Wait. When I ever declare to the nation that I want to be president of Uganda. Wait.
When is that?
I have never declared that I want to be president. I have never led a presidential campaign. But we have been working.
But you brought us.
We have been working under some fellows who have actually performed very dismally, and who have actually moved off track.
When you have a teacher teaching mathematics, and you're a student, you fail mathematics, I choose both of you, the teacher and the student. Either the student is a slow learner, or the teacher is a slow teacher. So, don't you think you qualify to be in either or? Because you have been working behind the curtains, brought us as citizens of this country, the NUP, of course, which is unavoidable and it's on record. You were the ones, you and others, who brought NUP to the public. Now you
promoted?
Who promoted? Okay.
They did not bring.
Okay.
Promoted.
And then you are choosing them for having failed, and you are the same teacher. Now you are bringing a tree under the Democratic Front. How truthful are you?
Now,
with the same template.
These ideas, we talk about and we do promote. Sometimes when you test an idea and it doesn't work, you should very, very quickly abandon it.
It has taken you how many years to quickly abandon it?
Very quickly abandon it. And we have been at the forefront of saying, no, look, change this. For instance, let me give a very, very simple example. You have a friend, I know you have a friend, by the name of Dr. Kwikiriza Nova Gedion President. we told Dr. Kizza Besigye, please, doctor, don't build, when in your struggle against Museveni, do not build a party, build a movement. A party is exclusive. A movement is inclusive. And I think he even up to now realizes that it was wrong for him to concentrate on building an exclusive formation.
The same way
if you are struggling,
the same mistake you have now.
if you are struggling to remove a system like we have now,
but DF is
the
a
DF
movement.
is an innovation, a very big innovation.
It's a party. It's not a movement.
It is not a party. It is not a party.
Our viewers, you see, that's the challenge when you meet lawyers.
No man.
Lawyers always twist their things.
Can I finish?
Because you want to lie to me on behalf of the viewers that DF isn't a party.
The operationalizing law of political parties and organizations is called the POA. And that is why it is named so. I was in Parliament in 2005. And it was a very big argument. Museveni came and said, no, you guys, okay, I want parties to go, but don't call mine a party. Okay? Mine is an organization. We asked him why. Because it was a conglomerate of many other interests. It's not a political party per se.
So yours is what?
Okay? Ours is a frontline organization. You can as well call it a party. DFO. It is a DF organization. Now, DF has been built as a frontline organization. A frontline organization is one that takes care of diverse interests. So there are so many interests behind DF. It has got interests of political parties. It has got interests of civil actors. It has got interests of individuals. So it is much more than a party. And look at the DF constitution. We state it. This is more than a political party. It is more than a political party. It is an organization.
Our viewers, of course, I don't want to use a disclaimer that's the challenge. That's what happens when you host lawyers. They always have those exceptions. They'll have all those theories. But nonetheless, we shall of course put him back onto task to tell us, but as far as I know, Democratic Front is a political party.
DFO.
Mabikke has borrowed from our alphabetical chart and borrowed another letter. Beyond the DF, now we have DFO. Tell us, I'm sure you saw our topical discussion in regards to whether or not the formation of new political parties represents democracy in a country or failure of those existing parties. Borrowing examples from back then, we had UPC. People weren't satisfied with UPC. Rure went ahead and with his organization and then merged, then formed NRM later alone, NRA rather, the movement system, literally. From there, some people weren't as satisfied. They formed JEM, of course, the CP has been there. Does that represent the democracy in a country, or rather, failure of the existing parties? Because, of course, before we cross back to Honorable Mabikke, one will say because of the failure of leadership in NUP, they chose to walk away. It's, I think, Honorable Mr. Ochieno that has remained very, very loyal to his UPC. That's why he doesn't move without something read on him.
And committed to pluralist multi-party.
Okay. Tell us about our topical discussion. What do you think, in your view?
First of all, political parties cannot be democratic in a country that is non-democratic. The question would be, is Uganda democratic? So if Uganda is not democratic, how do you expect political parties?
I think that also depends on whose lenses that reads that topical maybe an analysis of that you are mentioning.
Yes, so
you may mention that's not
question.
When another person out there thinks there hasn't been any democratic country like Uganda, and I'm sure you have heard of them. The beauty is that you're on X as the president of the Ugandans on X. You know those discussions there. There are those who think that you are simply joking to say Uganda isn't democratic.
For anyone to think that, you see, the NRA regime has invested a lot in in propaganda, and actually invested a lot in keeping Ugandans ignorant of what happens in the country. and you move around this country, don't even go very far, around Kampala, the capital city. Ask people what happens in their country. They don't know, and it is not their own making. It is actually the state, it is a state project to make sure that Ugandans are ignorant, because an informed society is very hard to manage, especially when you're not doing the right thing. You can only manage an informed society when you are doing the right thing. So there are people who could say that Uganda is democratic. It is okay, but this is my view. I don't think Uganda is democratic. So, and for anyone who thinks that Uganda is democratic, then they should come, maybe you should host them to tell us to define democracy. Because in a country where opposition leaders, you talk about Dr. Kizza Besigye and others, everyone, even the DF, you see, it's a new formation. They have been registered as a political party. But trust me that during 2026, these people are going to be seen on police trucks. They are going to be tear gassed. They are going to.
So as long as they misbehave,
we are.
If they misbehave, they'll be, thrown onto the.
What is misbehaving?
Holding rallies in markets, streets.
Is that misbehaving?
That's what.
Okay, but let's not bring really this discussion to that level of making it look like a joke. So for me, the question is, Uganda is not democratic. That is one. And the people who are in control of the power, what is power? The military and the finances do not have any intentions of seeing a democratic Uganda today as of now. You cannot expect political parties to be democratic. You have to understand that the regime, again, invests a lot in making sure that there is no opposition political party that stands. They invest in making sure that there is no coalition of political parties. If you got into details of how the DF, the new formation, how they left NUP, it somehow has a connection to infiltration of the regime. But you will not know. If you look at how FDC has ended up in two sections, there is a hand of the regime somehow, somewhere. Okay? So it is, we can discuss the democracy in political parties and what, it is very hard. But again, we cannot, for the last 40 years, we cannot always complain and cry over Museveni and his government. Something should be done.
So you are the problem, as citizens, not him.
He is the bigger problem, but we are also a problem. That we must admit. We cannot say 100% is the problem. Because over time, 40 years now, we should have known where the problem is. That
so your failure is
that
not the
Honorable
problem.
Mabikke right now should not be celebrating opening up a new organization as much as the Constitution provides for that. Because the more we get divided, the more we cannot liberate this country. The only way we can liberate this country is if we woke up one day and NUP, PFF, DF, UPC, ANT are all together working towards the same goal. That is the only way, and that's the language Ugandans will understand. Because each of these political parties have strongholds in different regions in this country.
But with different ideologies, because...
But you see, the ideology now should be to liberate Uganda where it is. Because all of us in the opposition agree that Uganda is not where it's supposed to be. So can we first liberate Uganda from the hands of the dictator from oppression, from corruption, from impunity, from lawlessness, can we first liberate Uganda from that? Can we unite and liberate Uganda from that? Then after that, yeah, I also don't believe that we shouldn't just look at liberating Uganda. We should also have a plan. You don't just fight for power to have it and you don't know what to do with it. We've seen past governments that got into power and they didn't know what to do with it and others took it.
Because for sure, if you cannot manage a smaller institution like a political party, how would Ugandans entrust you with this country?
You see, I've given you the reason why opposition political parties can't survive. It's not about the managers. That's not the issue. Everyone, there are of course a few selfish individuals who come to, get what to most especially aid on and whatever and positions. But most of these people that you see are fighting for a cause. But you are fighting an entrenched system that has been here for 40 years.
Which won't
that has
change.
been collecting taxes for 40 years. That has a gun, okay, the military power. You are fighting. So when it comes to internal systems of opposition political parties, there is definitely infiltration of the system. But we should also grow, we should be able to grow, opposition political parties should be able to grow past the infiltration. And that's where the point is. How do we grow past?
But see, Mr. Kwikiriza, what I want you to also accept and buy into is that as a student of political science, you know that you'll have to capture power, consolidate it. In fact, you retain, consolidate. So everything that you have mentioned can't be pushed onto Museveni. It is purely your weakness as citizens. Because no one will simply give you power on a silver platter, of course, no one. So I want to believe that even when you want to think that most of the blame is onto the other regime, that is what it must do if it wants to keep it in power. So the less contribution you make and the unseriousness amongst you as citizens and people who are trying to organize to push them away. And that's why the more you stay the way you are, I want to say that it could even take, if Museveni could live longer, it could even be here in the next 60 years. Because as you continue breaking, forming new parties.
let me just give you an example.
Yeah, in a minute, and then we go into a break and come back with this Ochieno.
If you're not seeing how President Museveni has failed opposition political parties, and any voices of change, it's not necessarily even about political parties. Any person who comes out to challenge his power, he invests a lot in that, and you can see it during there's something that's put up there that they call an election, that we all call an election.
Which I'm sure you are going to vote. Most likely the other two, the same thing.
Now.
In that ritual,
now,
like Honorable Mabikke called
yes. Now, this is the reason why I would want to agree with him, though in a different context, that during an election, it's the only time you have as a opposition to reach out to the people and give your message. You try it any other time, you'll be locked up, you'll be tear gassed, you'll be sent to prison. Because they will say you are not allowed, it's not a political season. So the political
season... So you concur with
season,
him to participate in the ritual regardless of the likely results?
Only that he referred to it as a ritual. I don't see it as a ritual. I see it as a process to do, to educate Ugandans. Because what we need right now, for any change that we are going to have, we need an empowered society, an empowered Uganda, an empowered citizenry. And they cannot only draw that power from being informed. Move around the country and see what perceptions people have. You know, someone is walking 200 kilometers to get water. But if you ask them their views about governance, they will tell you, afuga ya amanyi, I don't care. But they do not know that it's actually, they are not supposed to walk a kilometer to fetch
Because you
water.
haven't done much as people, as responsible
And that is
citizens.
what we are supposed to do.
Okay, viewers, we are breaking shortly, and we shall come back with Honorable, of course, we shall have Honorable Ochieno Joseph, of course, to answer that very question on whether or not the formation of these new parties represents democracy or failure of the existing parties. By and large, he seems to suggest that he's not bothered about, to him he calls it democracy. But of course he has to dig deeper and tell us why does he call it democracy. We are coming back shortly.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes, it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk. Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Thank you, viewers. My name is Norman Tumuhimbise. We are back with the three people who literally seem to agree, and just a few seconds later they disagree. But of course, that doesn't bar me from asking Mr. Ochieno Joseph to share with us his view. As we went into a break, he was rather suggesting that he wouldn't be opposed to the formation of new political parties. And maybe he's equally happy that also some colleagues in NRM broke away from UPC. Take it on, Mr. Ochieno. Do we see that would be a president of democracy or the failure in the existing parties?
No, before I do that, I want to acknowledge Michael Mabikke for his youthful contributions those days in the Uganda Young Democrats. I'm a product of the youth wing. Not that we had a UPC youth wing. It's always misrepresented. We did not have a youth wing. We had a youth league, very organized, very decent, very well behaved. In the 60s, the Bidandi Salis and others were young radical members, and in many cases, some of them, I think Bidandi and Chirunda Chivejinde ended up being expelled. That's why in the latter years, Museveni finds them, picks them, and ran with them. But and of course, because of lack of sometimes human ability to take responsibility and acknowledge and put context, because if they did, they'd simply say that they would simply have said we disagreed ideologically. As young people, they tend to be much more on the radical left of politics, and for UPC, which is a progressive left political party, you'd imagine that the guys on the radical left would be rather radical, except that they would not be street bandits like those that you find in NRA these days, that they throw stones, and they're even able to dare a retired, respectable police commissioner like Akulo. So Mike, when the Young Democrats were emerging, I was obviously heading the UPC External Bureau in UK, rather young myself, as it were. And naturally, politically, because DP is a political party of the right, conservative, for my young friends, KC and UPC progressive left, naturally two political parties with different ideologies, but of course the traditional competing political powers. And I'm revealing to you today that, well, I would then go ahead and envy, because your job is always to persuade and pull. The young guys are doing well. So you must sleep well today, because it's genuinely true that we saw your power and your influences. Our boys were doing well equally. But I'm raising it for a point. That is what politics is, and that's what politics should be. So these guys substantially contributed. I don't want to take a swipe that DP came out rather late in the struggles, because after 1985, we were the lone victims as UPC, but we're not going to that to spoil the conversation. And when Museveni came in, Paul Semugeri joined for 10 years. And Mike, you know that I hosted receiving Dr. Kawanga Semugeri when in London, when he was on his way out formally. And I remember I was nearly being reluctant to host him, to organize, because UPC, we had the infrastructure, DPD sort of did not. And we now was being emphasized. Again, the young people, lessons of youth, but also lessons of political tolerance. Milton Obote gave me straight instruction that I must do it. With hindsight, of course, the most common sense thing. Also, Milton Obote in 1991, Mike, told Cecile Ogwal and group, when we formed the Presidential Police Commission, and DP was officially with the NRA guys, I'm told he instructed these people to say, tell them that, look, DP who were in bed, the language you're using, with the NRA, they're not your enemies. They're your partners. They're merely your political opponents. So meaning, don't go that. Turns out hardly 5 years later, we were together. Now that's wisdom, but that's political leadership. Meaning therefore that you can actually agree to disagree, on fundamental issues, but you should also have the strategic ability to agree on critical issues or for strategic self-interest, but particularly when it comes to the questions of national interests. So that said, at independence, Uganda National Congress, which was founded in 1952, and DP that was founded in 1954, with all the interesting things, and Uganda National Congress splits in 1959. I always say that our first president, who Obote calls the father of Uganda's nationalism, Ignatius Musazi, is expelled as party president, and interestingly replaced by Milton Obote in his absence. Obote was elected in his absence here. Parties can have internal ideological contradictions, and it's okay. When Obote went to Mbale, was taken to Mbale, was not in the delegates conference as the new president. Others would technically call it president-elect, but we don't have that in that position. Obote writes and says, and he also told me personally, he had to go and look for Ignatius Musazi at the conference place, to look for this guy who's been expelled as president, and meet him. I had to go and meet my president to consult with him. And Musazi told him what happened, and Musazi sort of graced him with the leadership. I can get this young man. Do you get it? That is politics, that's leadership. That's something that happened in 1959. I hadn't been born. None of us here had been. In this country, men of integrity, men of probity, pre-independence, were able to think, predominantly men, there are few women, thinking like that. What it takes over the leadership of Uganda National Congress. And in 1960, he's able to bring back Uganda National Congress together with Uganda People's Union, breakaway parties, and then they formed Uganda People's Congress. That's how it happened in March 60. Then after that, you'll see where the story is going. Between 1961 and 61, DP was radically working to build itself. Of course, it was fairly, it had the numbers, forms the first interim administration with Ben Chiwanuka as the chief minister. But as we're leading towards independence, the campaigns DP, campaigns UPC, campaigns other kingdoms, particularly the bigger one being Buganda, KY wasn't yet there. But we had to have a successful Lancaster House Agreement conference where different political parties and different identities and kingdoms meet and we agree on independence. Meaning, all different kind of political quote formations, once we use those words, come and agree and we constitute independence, we go for elections, a different story. I've given you that story to say that actually internal differences and contradictions are not an issue in political parties. Nor should we necessarily have...
Maybe to you, but to him they are, because when they had internal disagreements, they ran away with the truth.
Okay, then, so because...
You will tell us.
Yeah, so the issue then is how do you handle them? But I think Mike, to be fair to him, said that there are certain irreconcilable differences. And I agree with him. There are certain people in UPC with whom I fundamentally disagree. The only difference is whether or not I leave UPC for them or they leave UPC for me, and things like that. But as individuals and personalities, the positions that I find irreconcilable. When Cecilia Gwal disagreed with Milton Obote, you can see I'm using UPC. So for us, we are not selfish at all. So we're able to use that, and that's what this thing's all about. So they disagreed. Cecilia formed her own interim thing. But eventually, 2004, with some of our contributions, they reconciled and Cecilia returned to the party. So that happens. Now, fast forward to where we are. Mike, we, as UPC, had a very long campaign between 1985 to sort of like... yes, as UPC. Then our colleagues in DP came in, but as I said, Obote had already warned the younger members, I'm using the word deliberately, younger members in the Sicily or wherever, that DP are not your enemies. So that means there was an element of constructive engagement even in the early 90s, although DP continued with these guys. So fast forward then when these guys came. Remember in 1996, DP and UPC were able to front one candidate. Obote's argument, though, at the time was that, look, which is basically what these two are talking about. There's something they're talking about which I don't want to help qualify for them. Means of breaking the gut, So according to Milton Obote, how do you participate in 1996 elections when political parties are still proscribed. So the argument was that let's use our power and our energy to compel the international community, to compel the citizens of Uganda, to compel Museveni to open up political space, meaning that our party structures, our party branches, party organizations, our ordinary members are the power and the voices next only to the constitution of the party, side by side with the constitution of the party. So it was an element of strategy. But sort of when the strategy sort of would, they came to a settlement in which we agreed that, okay, one, Semugeri should stand, and UPC supported Semugeri on that. That happens. Different kind of political parties, political interests is true. 1996. My problem is that come 1999, when Kizza Besigye and others who were now having internal contradictions in NRA came, it was over 10 years of complete demonization of UPC. Anything UPC was terrible blood. And for Museveni, anything multi-party, political parties, was terrible blood. Some of our colleagues in DP, and I told Dr. Semugeri this, that they missed the point. Some of them thought when they were bashing political parties, and particularly UPC, because UPC was the lead in the bashing, they didn't know that would rub onto them. I'm giving this as a context rather than the point scoring. So what happens is this now, as the messages were coming out, my argument continuously then was the messages needed to come and say, we got in 1986, we got the plan wrong. One, we need to return to political parties, pluralism, and number two, me basically, either I'm going back to UPC or maybe going to DP where my wife is.
Ochieno, the argument by back in the day was that given Uganda's history, where so many people, of course, majority of whom are NRM members, were saying that UPC misled this country and rather did, in fact, not only UPC, multipartism was playing the divide and rule. That is why they had baptized DP as being the Baganda thing, Kabaka Yeka, now the monarchists. Then UPC, of course, some of them consider it as a liberal, a liberal party. So there was a need, in their view, for people to to go back to the drawing board, relearn and or unlearn your mistakes as political parties until 2005, when they thought that maybe this was the right time for Uganda to re-embrace multipartism.
I get your point, and I don't want to lose my point track because it's extremely important. That is a fudge of NRA, and that's a fundamental mistake of the people who came in. Because part of your argument is sort of to justify Museveni's going to the bush, which is erroneous. 40 years, they have no justification. The discussion around including 1980 general elections, by the way, I have challenged even on these platforms. Can Museveni prove which parliamentary constituency NRA lost, or which parliamentary constituency UPC won, and how many, got grabbed from them, which made UPC form government, and how many of which ones, if UPC had not won, UPC would not form a government. They can't tell. Otafire told you, we know this was a ploy by Museveni and a dubious group of his NRA guys, backed by some people, including the Kagames, who are really not Ugandans, and I say this deliberately, to capture power and create a Bachweze empire, which they have at the moment, which now Mabikke and I are trying to undo. But the point is, so the propaganda had gone, and I just want to make this point if you don't mind. The propaganda had gone. As we were coming out of that propaganda, I think it was important that people who are now rejoining us, rejoining the Semugeri and UPC, us, the same messages, come in and either join DP or rejoin UPC. I think the risks was, and it's fair enough, and I don't fault them. I'm just, based on the topic of the conversation today, do we polarize by creating 10 different political organizations based on individual interests or strategic ideological things? My view was that had Besigye joined either of the political parties as groups, we would have been stronger. Mike, you and I have not had this conversation recently. We would have been stronger. Meaning that maybe even the unlikely event that another new political party emerges away from traditional UPC, traditional DP, which are basically two different ideological political parties anyway, it would have been easier. But what happened when the messages came, political parties had been so demonized, and individual merit politics had been brought so much that is very much about me, myself, and I. So people looked at individuals, and the money had already, and power had already was coming in. So it's not surprising that when Besigye came in, with the energy that he had, you know some of the accusations about self-interest and patronage. You know, that builds onto FDC, then FDC begins to have this issue. Fast forward away from FDC, as you see that, then came the Gregorius Mugisha Muntu. Mugisha Muntu is a child of Uganda People's Congress. He should have come back into his party. His father told him not to join these bandits.
Maybe.
You know, no, let me just make this point. And Ubonti was always very kindly wanting to come. They didn't. But I'm saying this for the purposes of the argument of the debate today. So it didn't happen. So these guys go into their formation, and then you realize Mugisha Muntu disagrees with Besigye, and they form their own political organizations, you know. So my point is, I think we need fewer political parties, yeah, but more leaders to emerge. Okay. However, into their case, you know, Michael makes a very important point that at some stage, to be fair, NUP, so first of all, when FDC came, it's very persuasive, you know, this reform agenda grouping and things like that. That, okay, those who polarized UPC and DP guys, let's leave them with them. So they came. I suspect that they didn't have sufficient foundation. I'm saying it for the first time today. You know, I don't think there was also sufficient political depth to drive it to the next level. They needed advice from people like us in UPC, and they disregarded it. I'm saying it for the first time, and they needed advice from certain leaders from DP, and they disregarded. But forget about it.
Also, in a second, you see, being honest to ourselves, Mr. Ochieno, there is no way how a reasonable person, for instance, would go to someone who has repeated the class, asking them for advice. You lost power twice, and you expected them to come and seek advice from you.
No, I think those people,
very practical.
Those people, such people would wish them very well if they think UPC has repeated class, because UPC's excellence has never been matched. And has, no, because I think I get your point.
Yeah,
but to be fair, such people in political terms, if you say it, for any of those guys to think that UPC was a failure, no wonder they're where they are. And I'm saying it, unfortunately. I don't normally use those strong words.
Both of you are the veranda. Like you have no future.
I've told you, we are the only political party that has gone to State House following an election. And we're the only political party that has not been defeated.
But
now, these guys, not to be fair, let me tell you
this.
Because
not every rebellion elsewhere has been successful.
Museveni's rebellion is neither here nor there. But look, what clear ideological stance and our track record of the 60s and 80s, yeah, in a political and economic terms, can be challenged by an NRA? Nothing. But I just want to come back to where Mike is. Yeah. That look, so I think those were the challenges post-FDC. By the time of the NUPs, I think the idea of the wave politics had happened. The NUP thing, particularly the people power thing, was a wasted opportunity. Lost opportunity, I think. Let me use the word. Because I supported them because using our UPC structures, including the UK. A number of some of my young guys make constructive contributions today, including NUP. But the point then was about this business of, what was the other? People power. That let's rally around, and this is what I was trying to make, a movement of people to galvanize support, to open up the mess, including those people who've been duped by NRA, so that Ugandans wake up to the realities and to take a position. Okay. Somewhere there, people decided to go narrow. Mike is trying to tell you, to go narrow. And by the time they went narrow, they went to the individual interest. Michael says that, well, we realized that, we took a position. And they're taking the position at the moment is, can I continue the zombie-like kind of stuff? I'm not saying that's what where he came from is, or do we create another foundation? Okay, what they've tried to do now, I think is sensible politically. Your challenge, though, is trying to persuade Ugandans that here is a critical, alternative, new thing that does not exist on the basis of the narrative that I've given in terms of a trajectory. And it's our clear position. But they've got a right to be able to do so. Okay,
thank you, Mr. Ochieno Joseph. Now, you see, at some point, I sympathize with the Honorable Mabikke and the team. Like, there are these gentlemen and a few ladies in, hypothesis, political hypothesis. They have those ideals for this country. They mention their political parties and ideologies. And then, with all these cameras in front of him, he mentions this is a ritual, and then on behalf of the citizens are like, okay, wait a second, Honorable Mabikke, why even West Ugandans time participated in a ritual?
I'll come there. I'll come there, Norman.
No, in fact,
so provocative.
No. You had better take it on and tell us why do you want to participate in a ritual?
Number one.
That is literally a predetermined
Even
ritual.
before I tell you about the ritual, predetermined it is. First, I want to say that political parties have never been functional in Uganda, fully functional.
Even the UPC back in the day.
Yes, because just to tell you, but the UPC should be given credit, and so is DP, because most pre-independence parties all over Africa have fizzled out. Go to Kenya, go to Malawi, go to Zambia, go to Nigeria, go to Ghana, go to Senegal, Ivory Coast. Most of the pre-independence parties, those parties which delivered independence, are all gone. So UPC is a very strong.
What purpose will it serve having UPC exist?
UPC has had a very strong foundation, so has DP.
Title and non-functional.
What did you say?
Of what purpose would it be for a political party to be there just by name and when access to?
No, he's saying there's no political organization which is perfect. And just to be fair, because again, this is for your viewers, yeah? Even this age of political party things, if you look around the world, political parties are hundreds of years old. In Uganda, we just need to accept a culture that once in a while I can make a mistake, Michael can make a mistake, he came from a particular end, make your review, and this is the new me.
You don't form a new party.
So, let me just come to that.
Anyway,
Uganda, you know, with Uganda's politics, the history of Uganda is that the military has always had a central role in the politics of Uganda since independence. You remember the 1966 crisis when Idi Amin took charge. No. When the old order was, the constitutional order was overthrown, and then you come to 1971 when Idi Amin took charge for those 8 years, and then you come to 1979 when the Fonasa, Chikos Malum, together with TPDF now took charge for some time. Then you come to 1985.
NRM.
1985, no, Ochieno.
Ochieno
overthrew Joseph's government. The army commander overthrew Joseph's government. Then you come to 1986, when a ragtag rebel formation captured power, and it established a pseudo-military government to present. That's the description of Uganda's history. So, political parties have never been fully functional, and they have never been given a chance to flourish.
No one will give you a chance.
That's the first thing, no.
No one will never give you a chance. You have to work for your chance.
In Kenya they have. Now, having said that, we have always had a situation where the civil actors in Uganda, the civil political actors in Uganda have never been in charge of the country. Except for those few years of the first initial years of Milton Obote. Now, when you come to parties, actually the internal contradiction that Joseph talks about, internal contradictions of parties, are equally synonymous with the military role in Uganda's politics. He has told you about the UNC contradiction that brought about UPC. But you also know that this formation called UPM were actually all former UPC actors. You know that? Yeah. And you know that subsequently you had the NRM forming. NRM, the Civil Military Alliance, because NRM is largely a civil military alliance of peasants, Baganda peasants in Oluwero and these sharp gunmen. Now, once the NRM formed, you see the FDC. FDC is an offspring
of NRM.
Of the NRM. Now, from FDC also springs the UFA, Betty Kamias. You know that. Then you see the ANT.
Now PFF.
And now you see
PFF.
Now, in the DP, also similar issue, the NUP. NUP is an offshoot. The entire foundation of NUP was actually the DP. And so now is DF. So it is not It is not. It has been a history that the
But you see,
internal political party contradictions in Uganda have led to formation of other political parties. That is our history. That's like the military. If tomorrow you hear that the military has taken up charge of government, it will not really sound so strange, because that's our history
so
in
is that-
Uganda.
Is that a
Now,
is that a failure?
Uganda's, except the UPC and DP, Uganda's post 1995 parties have not been as ideological as the traditional two. Actually, their obsession has been largely change. Their obsession is largely about power. How do you take charge of this establishment from Museveni? That has been, it has not been driven by the high ideology of the UPC, left ideology versus the right, this deep ideological contradiction. They are largely formations about the internal disagreements and thinking that, this does not work, this works. Now, my friend, the president of the virtual president, saying, now you people, you should not be forming about other parties. Your obsession must be how to come together. No, you don't just come together for the sake of it. We saw it during UNLF. Ugandans were bundled up together under UNLF. At the end of the day, that formation created a crisis that you couldn't move the country forward. And that's what led to the 1980 crisis, which led some guys to run to the bush. Now, there can be as many fronts as possible.
This is the point I also want to put forward to you. For some reason, we need some bit of clarity. For instance, Honorable Mabikke, Mike Mabikke, former MP for Makindye East, Makindye East, once presided over a political party under the name SDP. The same gentleman, we do not know on whether or not you carried your constitution and a party and then, amalgamated SDP with now the new formation that you have under DF. And if yes, did you also lose trust in your own establishment of SDP?
Now, politics is what works. Brother Norman, don't have all these your impractical ideas. Politics is what
is practical?
Politics is what works.
Dropping your own kid and then you run on to the neighbors.
It does not, but I told you, most of these formations are largely ideological vehicles. Nothing more.
What happened to ideology now?
Ideological vehicles. And an ideology can be married with a similar thinking. It cannot be married. Yes, it can. Now, let me tell you what this. What we should be talking about here is the right leadership. Right leadership. Secondly, we should be talking about are the correct methods of work. Leadership. Today, the opposition is faced with a leadership vacuum.
But you have been
for
the past 20 years.
Look,
the same people, the
I
same
am
leaders.
not a mainstream actor now. I
Who
am
ba-
not. And this is what.
you?
This is what.
Who
Listen,
banned you from being
Norman.
an active
Listen.
actor?
This is what we are trying. This is what we are trying to address. The political vacuum today in Uganda. Offer the right leadership. Give it to Museveni. Whether he's got a wrong or right agenda, he gave his group leadership. Give it to Milton Obote. Right or wrong, like him, hate him, he gave his party leadership. Give it to Benito Chiwanuka the late. Hate him, like him, he gave the DP leadership. This is what is lacking now, and this is the question we must address. Leadership. Are the actors today, the mainstream actors today, offering leadership?
And you're part of them.
Well,
in a vacuum, you're part of the vacuum.
Well,
the vacuum creators.
that you may see. Then secondly, what again brings about the internal contradictions and the methods of work? Sadly, when you are into a political formation, when you're playing inside a political formation, and you develop difference in opinion on the direction you should take, colleagues do not actually appreciate that there can be diverse views and diverse thought. They are monolithic. They would now only start branding. It is what killed the FDC. You don't know the impact of the split of FDC on the opposition. Because the split of FDC actually took us 20 years back.
The same split
Why?
of
The difference in direction between Besigye and Muntu would have been internally resolved. But you know why? One group resorted to branding. This is a mod. This one is a mod. This one is
The
this.
same thing with you and
You get me? It's the same thing. That's what I'm saying. You know, they find a simple answer to explain away a very complex situation. Today, another group has run out of FDC, but they have been looking for Muntu everywhere.
Leave our colleagues.
No, I want to describe to you.
And also manage
I want to describe to you, brother.
your conflict
No, man.
on how you run away
No, man.
from
No, man.
Kamocha and now
This is what is. And wait, just give it time.
He's giving a broad analysis.
Yes, I'm giving a broad. And
And
very soon.
I know with that discussion, the way Mr. Ochieno is enjoying it.
You don't know.
On how you run away from.
And we are.
I'm a scholar, so
Okay, let's hear from him.
We are predicting very soon to that of course Noop will come looking for some
For
of
you.
us. Very much
Seriously?
so. Very much so. Because the branding issue is just a very simple a simple answer to explain
Saying
away
Mabikke
a
ate,
very, very,
over
very
ate.
complex situation. Now, the same group that branded Muntu is the same group that is now
Branding you and
that's now working closely with him. Has he stopped being a mod?
maybe he confessed his sins.
No way. So
If any.
it is these methods of work that actually creating
For how long will you be on the run?
many more formations. Now, coming to this issue, ritual.
Yeah.
Yes, an election is a ritual because if you read,
Predetermined according to you
if you
and
read,
others, and then
if
you
you
participate.
read, if you read the history of elections under the NRM, you realize that it is practically impossible to change a president. You can change a member of parliament.
And
you can change a district chairperson.
And you
You can change an LC one chairperson through that election.
And you
but you
practically want to
can
participate.
never change.
But you
Because at
practically
the end of
want
the
to participate.
day, even if Mr. Museveni is defeated, the army will come in as an arbiter. It was General Sejusa and General Tumukunde who told us, look, gentlemen, we have been spy chiefs, but in this particular election, Besigye defeated this gentleman. But because we had specific instructions in the military and the security, there was no way we would allow that.
But Honorable, with
So-
due honesty, do you get convinced when in your alone time to convince yourself and believe that you are organized?
Yeah, let me tell you this.
To win an election.
No, man, let me tell you this. You can actually create a very big crisis in Uganda through an election. And Ochieno here, Joseph, has got a friend called Odinga. Odinga will go into an election, however unfair, and he will make the best out of it.
So you are learning from the same
Now,
results. Has he been
I'm
president?
not learning away, but
He hasn't been president
and
either.
this worked. Let me tell you one thing. We analyzed. We looked at all the previous election and realized that Semoge had won West Nile, had won Acholi, had won Lango, had won parts of Teso, and had been defeated in Uganda
In 96.
and the West. We also looked at the trends of Besigye throughout. Besigye's trends were much similar. He had constantly been winning West Nile. He had been winning Acholi. He had been winning Lango. He had been winning Teso and parts of Bugisu. And again, the problem was in Busoga,
And
Buganda, and the
some
West.
bit of Uncle Dave.
We came up with a formula. Saying, well, if you have these four,
How old is this formula? The one of now.
2021.
Okay.
2021, actually, and we're just going to improve on it.
Okay.
2021, we said don't concentrate on those areas where we have
There
been
has
winning.
been a win.
Let us concentrate in organizing
Uganda.
structures in Busoga and Uganda. It is our formula which delivered Buganda for the first time in 21 years.
And it dropped the other regions.
Now,
You
sadly,
delivered Buganda and dropped the other regions.
sadly, I can tell you this. Sadly, our formula works in Uganda because we had an assumption that the other regions will suddenly vote. Now, we won in Uganda, we won in Busoga. And sadly, the other regions backslid.
And we put on to you that you're one of the losers.
Backslid to Museveni.
So having come with
now, that is what we have got to work on. Why did the other regions slide back to Museveni and the NRA? That's a question now. You know, politics is about what works. Now, we have investigated and realized that the problem is about leadership. They had no confidence in that candidate that was presented. They said, no, we don't have
If you don't mind, that's very interesting. So they possibly didn't have a confidence in that candidate. But could it also be that they had also lost confidence in elements of what was happening in FDC? Or could it also have been that the squabbles in FDC
largely
was also eating up in the other side?
There were two issues. It was the split of FDC that led to those areas sliding back. Two, it was the candidate who emerged as a mainstream candidate in the last election. And when you go to West Nile, when you go to Acholi land and sit in Gulu pub and invite people, when you go to Lango, they will tell you so that no, in this area one more serious fellows.
So you think,
than you're presenting.
in your view,
so this one was addressed.
That they will have confidence in you after breaking away from no.
There are things we're addressing. One, we must address leadership. We must have quality leadership. If you want to replace Museveni, you must really produce a quality leader. Two, you must change your methods of work. And this is what we're trying to address. It's not just about coming together. It's much more than coming together. But it's addressing the reasons why regions which had been voting the opposition traditionally slid back. And those regions which were voting him actually changed to the opposition. That's where the jinx is. Now, if for instance Buganda is NRM is defeated in Buganda, is defeated in Busoga, NRM is defeated in Alango, is defeated in Acholi, is defeated in West Nile, now it will be a different ball game. That will be a different ball game.
Do you see yourselves achieving that as a DF?
Very possible. I told you it was possible. We planned this. It worked out. It worked.
It didn't work out because you just
it worked because the most influential region in Uganda flipped. For 20 years, 25 years, they had been voting government. They had been voting NRM. They flipped. NRM was defeated. NRM is the minority in that region. NRM became the minority in Busoga. Now it's about working backwards and see what the problem is. Very simple.
You see, our viewers are watching you, and by God's grace, we shall have you here with the very template come next year to ask you, okay, Honorable Mabikke, do you remember what happened on 7th July? We shall be referring to 2024, 2025, rather, asking you, and then you'll be like, you see, Norman and the viewers, we delivered now, we again delivered the Western region, now Buganda skipped from our hands. But nonetheless, in like 2 or so minutes, what is it that is very different, in your view, that you are bringing on board, unlike the rest of the political parties as of today?
One.
Because maybe in a second, you have your leader up there who has been to many, social media, to mention but a few, tagged with a 500 million, something that if it's about cleansing, I don't know which well you will take him to be cleansed. But from there, then there is you, to many, of course to many, and not even for the first time, I have mentioned it to you, both on and off record, that many people have taken you and the Honorable Mukaku as political nomads. It is also on your neck. It is something you are carrying. How differently are you now?
Number one, nomadism is very good.
So as long
it's very good, especially if you are chasing a power project.
Nomadism.
And all those people who have finally captured power and captured government, taken control of government, have been political nomads. I have always given you an example.
So
I have always given you an example of a man called Ruto, who began as Kanu, and went into I don't know, was it UDA? Then he went into another formation called what was that? Jubilee. Then finally after Jubilee, he went into now Kenya Kwanza. he was able to capture power at the end of the day in Kenya Kwanza, different from the formation of his godfather, Moi. Same thing to Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta left his father's party. You know that. And he made 3-4 other formations before he could become president. Come to Yoweri Museveni, despite the fact that he even picked up a gun. He began in DP, then he joined the Ochienos, then he formed his own UPM, then there was somewhere he formed FRONASA, he formed NRM, now NRMO, Even he couldn't sustain himself in power with NRM. He had to do an NRMO.
So we have added an O.
Nomadism is correct. Is correct as long as you are chasing a goal, a bigger goal. If you're not chasing to be a mere member of parliament, if you're not chasing to be a mere mayor, nomadism is a right in order. Now,
in a minute,
what are we doing in DF? We are trying to assemble a team. And we are learning from Milton Obote. Milton Obote was able to lead Uganda because, one, he groomed able, competent leaders. And some of these leaders have been instrumental even long after Obote's death. That's a cue you should learn from UPC. The issue of grooming quality leadership. UPC was able to capture power a second time because it had quality leaders.
And also lost it because
quality
of,
leaders.
Now,
Yoweri Museveni by then dominated initially because he too had very, very competent team around himself. And when he began bringing in the fishermen, the Nabanjas of this world and the rest, that is when we begin seeing a real total decline of the NRM. Now, it is very critical that we need to give Uganda quality leaders, and this is what they are yearning for. It is the reason West Nile went back to the NRM. It is a reason Acholi went back to NRM. It is a reason Lango went back to NRM, because they could not see viable, vibrant, quality leadership.
Okay, it's I don't want to say it is hard to note, but nonetheless, Mr. Kwikiriza, do you consider Honorable Mabikke intentional and serious? And what he mentions, do you find it achievable and practical?
Now,
because a second, Mr. Kwikiriza, see, one of the problems, by and large, that people mention is about your generation. That is a fact, which either does not understand the multipartism and or has nothing like an ideology that it picks. And a reason for which he says quality leadership. Do you think what he mentioned is achievable and practical?
They are, you say they are blaming our generation.
The virtue of a generation.
And for not even voting, actually. They don't vote.
The generation, once they go to X,
they don't vote.
Make their positive.
Yes.
See, you are talking about quality leadership, and you are, after following so many leaders, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Honorable Mabikke has ever been in who is the former Prime Minister who opposed President Museveni? I think he was somehow.
Yeah, he's what? Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
They go forward.
They go forward. So you
and
are.
then he moved backward.
Yes. So you are talking about quality leadership, and you are rallying a person who is accused of awarding himself 500 million shillings. Ugandan taxpayers.
Can I correct that? Can I correct that?
I'll come back to you just in a second.
So if we are talking about quality leadership, there is a question mark, and you mentioned it in your questions. He didn't respond to that. You know?
I'm mentioning it for the second time,
yes,
so he will respond to it in the remaining minutes.
Social media, it's been everywhere, and they have never clearly come out to explain how you see it in a meeting where you choose to award yourself. Because I don't want us to get into that debate again.
Is what he mentioned achievable?
It is Parliament that should have sat down to award anyone they wanted to award. Okay? So what is quality? Then that's the question I'll set to you. 2, I believe that quality leadership should be part of the components of quality leadership should be your ability to reconcile with those you disagree with, not being on the run all the time. You are here, you are there, you are there, you are there, and then you are trying to justify the running by saying you're looking for quality leadership.
But he has given you examples where the running has worked. Has given you Ruto's run has worked.
They are totally different circumstances if we went into details of that. But I just don't want to, for me, I still stand on my ground. I think that all these political players, especially in the opposition, need to find a place, because we know who you are fighting. It's not.
When you say we, you and who? What do you mean the we?
The opposition minds in Uganda.
Know that who is
opposition minds are different from opposition political parties. They are parties, but they are people who are opposed to the regime, but may not be part of, subscribe or affiliate to any political party. So my point is, and the point I really want to make, for the time I've been here, I've not lived as long as they have lived. But I think the problem we have in Uganda is politics of populism, politics of individual messianism.
Yeah, it's an element.
We have failed to build institutions under political parties, and we have instead built individuals, and that's the problem. I'll just give our panelists here and the viewers a simple question. Do you see an NRM after Museveni in 10 years or 5 years? Because NRM is Museveni and Museveni is NRM. Even after they have lived for 40 years, it is very clear that after Museveni you may not see NRM. It may stay, because it may stay because we have I'm sorry, my elder is here. We have UPC, we have DP. They have stayed, but more or less dysfunctional. They have a name and all that. I'm sorry if it may sound offensive, but
well, see your opinion.
You may not see. You don't see NUP after Chagulanyi. 2-3 years. It's not a political party. See what happened when Dr. Kizza Besigye decided to, step aside. Because he had been in control of the political party, and he was the political party. The reason we see political parties dividing all the time, it's because everyone wants to be at the top. The reason we admire countries like the US, these democracies that we admire, is because they have had people who sacrificed for their children and grandchildren. We don't have that culture in Uganda.
Okay.
We have individuals, one who want to be praised, and this cuts across. This is why at some point I want to agree with General Mugisha Muntu. You may say he's not as active, he's not as what, but he is trying to build an institution rather than having him, and to challenge Honorable Mabikke. The reason they won Uganda and some part of Musoga that he may, I don't know whether he knows and he doesn't want to tell us, is because of the candidate they fronted. It's not because of any planning or any strategy or anything. They fronted a musician who was popular here in Uganda, who is a Muganda, that is one, who was a popular musician, loved, and who made them feel that he was speaking to their issues, having risen up from the ghettos.
Okay.
So it was never about strategy.
So in your view, just like in 40 or so seconds, do you think what he mentioned is achievable, or he's playing politics? Him and the team.
It's typical politics.
Okay. Mr. Ochieno, before you take on your last minute, we have Frederick Shine Sulon. Says he's watching from Liberia. But that's not. Thank you, Frederick, for watching. But there's this George Mwebe who says, ask Mr. Mabikke and Joseph, how will they change the government when they are the ones who give Mr. Museveni permission to become president of Uganda, even legitimize him every election, if they are not confusing Ugandans? Why do you confuse Ugandans?
I mean,
What he says,
suddenly in UPC, we told you so. We told you Ugandans that these are bandits. We told you Museveni was a reject from Nyabushozi. When he went to Luweero, he told you that he was coming to liberate you guys. We told you that he was surrounded by suspicious people, who some of whom may not be Ugandans, who therefore will not have Ugandan interests. We told you. So I'm answering him in a few minutes. We told you so. And we fought as the government. We put in resources to protect Luweero, and protect the rest of Uganda, so that we retain the government and deliver the services for the people. But Museveni and his like-minded, they went ahead and they shortcutted and overthrew our government. So we cannot take responsibility for that. But we did our level best. But quickly, I think part of the way forward, because I realize we don't have time, is this: that part of what I said earlier, and part of what all my colleagues are saying, there's an urgent need for leadership in this country. And leadership is really very much about convictions, guys with sets of values and vision for our country, people who are selfless. We still have a few of them, they're not many. We need to be able to do that. That's why I was giving you the trajectory of how we mutated from the NRA dictatorship to ended up into personal merit. Today, on the spot, should be political parties, also amongst the many reasons. Now, you find a political party which has got a leader who's not elected, but is occupying the party headquarters and doesn't want to leave. You have a leader who rigs internal party elections. You have a leader who employs his or her relatives. You have a leader who, operates, kissing, workers in the office, and those are the favorite people. How do you differentiate those from Mr. Museveni? Meaning, part of the challenge facing us around this institution thing is today we have people who do not respect the institution, do not respect internal party organization, constitution. And yes, part of the challenge for us is that in such people, when given government, what would happen? But from UPC perspective, you know what? I grew predominantly in the hands of Milton Obote, and I've been telling UPC people, including these people who are occupying Uganda House by force, and the Walubiris who broke the electoral processes when I was elected president, they played out with it. Obote, throughout the time I was with him, he would always refer to the party constitution in every decision he made up to his deathbed. And today Obote must be very sick about what his son and others are doing. But number two, Obote would also be very conscious about what we do, even when parties were still banned, to make sure that we do not act in a manner in which we would put ourselves at an arm's way to enter a dictatorship when it talks that we are standing against the nation state. Those are what we need. So in the course of all our engagements, Michael, we need to make sure that we become examples to these young guys. And part of what he's also saying is that, that we need to show them as young people confidence that we are exemplary leaders, that we are worthy being followed, that we can be believed for our word, that we've got integrity, and that we're selfless, and that we know what we're doing, and that, yes, we are granting them hope for a possibility, and the possibility that our independence leaders, thankfully, UPC substantially provided for, is one that they can attain post Mr. Museveni. And lastly, that possibility must also be linked with our leadership, which has got ability to bring our people together, including languages that we speak, than to brag, so that young Ugandans, even going to the votes, whether they go to ballot boxes or not, they say whatever happens, Ochieno is not going to lead us into banning cars and so therefore breaking our nation state, but rather that this country is much more important than all of us individuals or indeed individual leaders.
Okay, Honorable Mabikke, I think this goes to you. We are closing shortly, but I can't leave this message before, rather without bringing it to you. Honorable Mabikke has accepted that they promoted Noob, though he later abandoned it. Should Ugandans expect him to exit DF as well after promoting it? Why promote and later abandon? I don't know, this person they call themselves or himself or herself, let's save the youth. That's what. So should they expect you also in a minute, because we are out of time?
500 service award has been explained. 500 million service award has been explained. There's no way Puga would have awarded himself
Okay.
500 million.
About saving the.
But as you know, there is a whole procedure. I think you should take interest in the procedure of accessing a consolidated fund. You should take much interest as a young man. Don't just hear somebody say this and then you come and also amplify it without much evidence and credence. It was a ceremony, a public ceremony, where Butajira was awarded, Kadaga, second, Mr. Chigongo, Haji Chigongo, and so.
How come members of parliament were shocked that...
because they don't read, and I also encourage you to read. Because we have got the lowest quality members of parliament in Uganda's history are in that parliament.
Okay, in a minute, I think, okay, use this minute, Honorable Mabikke, to close. What is your roadmap now, and then we shall leave here?
Our roadmap?
Yes.
Number one is a membership drive. 2 is to issue for Ugandans a policy and governance agenda, and build, as the delegates conference so directed, and build synergy with our colleagues, like-minded colleagues, in ensuring that we work together to do the following: release of political prisoners before the next election.
You're using, is that now becoming rhetoric? That's
no,
what
it's not
everyone
rhetoric.
is saying.
It is very serious.
That's the everyone
it
is
is very
now.
serious. We must. There has never been an effort. There is not much effort done. 2, ensure safety of voters and candidates at the next election. 3, fight to remove the military and the security agencies from elections. And finally, crusade for 1 voter register, not a multiplicity of them.
Okay. Viewers, my name is Norman Tumuhimbise. Of course, we have no extra second because I also have people that also have the mandate to push me away from these cameras. But of course, we cannot thank you enough for keeping it Dig Talk. Honorable Mabikke, Mr. Joseph Ochieno, Mr. Kwikiriza Gedion, and of course, all our viewers. We pray that God keeps you alive, and then we shall have the same people come here, and also each one of them to account for what they have told the world. May God bless all of us, for God and my country.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.